Let's talk a bit about the sources and forces of change. So when I talk about change, what are the changes? Where do they come from? So it's important we understand what are the sources. Number one, it could be internal or external. And also the forces, we've got different forces being operated on in the world. So it could be, again, external forces. For example, the COVID pandemic that we are now in, I don't want to discuss this, but still I'm being forced to, because it's something that we are all forced upon, right? We don't like it. Nobody likes to be at the home. Nobody likes to have this kind of conversations where you're forced to be in the house for more than now 8 months, now 7-8 months. We don't like it, but it's been forced on us, and we just need to adapt ourselves. We can't just resist this. And that's where we need to understand what are the internal and external forces, or rather sources. We'll discuss the source first and then the force, because source is softer and force is a harder one. So if you look at it, there are different business priorities. Sometimes it's the business priority which actually dictates how you would like to operate. It could be, for example, as we discussed, people were they were more buying things in the stores. They were actually kind of doing all these in-store purchases. People like to feel it. People like to look at something, feel it, and then they say, oh, this is beautiful. I would like to go for it. I buy it. Even about 5 years back, we had the online store. We've got Amazon, we've got eBay. And so all of these different stores, apart from these, they used to have their own online web stores. But people did not the uptake was not that much compared to what it is doing now. Because now we've been forced, we've actually got the business priorities actually now mobile first, online first. So if you've got a business like, I was talking about the mobile phone accessory selling business as an example, then the first thing that you need to do is to have that site working well in the mobile phones, whether it is iPhone or Android. And it should also be online, so that I can complete that. I can look at that on my phone. I can look at that on my mobile browser. I should be able to complete the whole transaction on my mobile phone without having to go back to the browser and then say enter my payment details. So everything can be done on the mobile online. So that's the business priority now. And that's, unfortunately or fortunately, that's the way most of the business have got to adapt themselves. Otherwise, they're off. There's no place for them. And the changes of key stakeholders, it happens so often. Again, I can't stress the importance of understanding the current context. People change, the managements change, the teams change, restructuring happens, businesses themselves are being forced to change. So if you've got any changes, any kind of shifts that happen in the senior management, in the stakeholders, in the customers, we were talking about the example of this company which was selling this was actually kind of taken over by a bigger company. There were mergers, there were acquisitions. And because of all of these, there are loads of shifts happening. And because of that, the change can hope. And then even the change of scope within the product. So for example, initially we were saying that we would we would develop an e-commerce website for having this, for selling the mobile phone accessories. And now we're seeing that, why to just stop at e-commerce? I mean, the mobile phone accessories or iPad, why can't we sell mobile phones online? Why can't we just have this mobile phone? Why can't we just sell iPad tablets? Or, why can't we, instead of tablets, that's what we call as marketing myopia. Don't be myopic. Don't be too short-sighted in terms of what you're trying to define as your product offering, as your market segmentation. So try and expand, make it sure that it is, and that's why we've got like group of companies now where they sell everything, they diversify into things which they have been doing differently before. So that again is a change of scope, the scope in terms of scope in and scope out. As technical team, we should be able to understand what is inside the scope of this work that we have now. And more importantly, as what I've been stressing all along, what is outside the scope, what is not currently required. That is more important actually sometimes. So you should be scoping in and scoping out. From the point of view of external factors, I think we are aware changes in the political situation, changes in the dynamics involved. For example, the Brexit and the relationship with other countries, and all these things could play a part, the governance structure, all of these. And economic factors, again, now we're talking about the massive change in terms of the macroeconomic and the microeconomic factors that could affect the industry that we are in, the business we are in, and the kind of company that we have got. All of these, we need to consider the changes can come from any of these factors. And then changes in socio-cultural factors, we're talking about it, right? So we've got this lifestyle changes. People, how they work, how they live have been changing. It's the new normal, as I say. I don't want to bring again the context of COVID and all this pandemic, but very, very, very important in this context. Just imagine the massive changes we've been going through. And that's not a choice that we have. We don't have a choice. It's not because of us that all of these things are happening, because of a lot of different things, but we have got to adapt ourselves to these massive, massive changes in the way we live, in the way we work, and in the way we actually communicate and relate to our own family. It's a shame we can't even reach out to a family and go visit our own family. We could never imagine that our own, parents, we've got to, think twice about visiting them. Our own friends, thinking twice about visiting them. Why? It's happening. It's a shame. Changes in technology or new technologies coming in. Again, we discussed this back end and the front end and the middleware. We're talking about open architectures now. It's no more about closed architectures. If you look at Microsoft House now, the technology stack of Microsoft, they're now getting more and more open. Cloud transformation, we're talking about putting everything on the cloud, making everything available on the fly. And that's, again, a major, major change in the approach towards technology. Open source, open systems, open source, open application interfaces, open cloud ability to work with any kind of a platform and not just a specific set of tools and technologies. And also digital transformation, the focus on digital, everything digital, and drive everything mobile, everything online. So if you see, there's a massive shift that is happening in the technology space as well, and we can't ignore this, and that could be based on that. And then you have got the changes in legislations. The GDPR, for instance, the privacy rule, for example, that was introduced by the EU and then followed by most of the countries, is basically, again, a massive shift in terms of how we're using the data of our customers, of the users who visit our websites or any of the other application products that they use. So it's all about specifying and then being open to them about how we're going to use their data, and then telling them in advance and being open again, no secrecy. Sorry. It could also be the fact that we're talking about banking changes. Some of the open banking is coming in. You've got a lot of different legislations, a lot of new players in the banking. Now we've got things like, for example, the disruptor banks. We're not talking the traditional banks nowadays. You've got cryptocurrencies which have come through, alternative currencies. We've got all of these kind of Monzo Bank, for instance, or Revolut. All of these are disruptors, Sterlite banking. So they're all trying to, Starling Bank. All of these are trying to actually, kind of disrupt the banking world, disrupt the normal things. Uber has disrupted the way we actually kind of, travel. Uber, and then you've got all the Airbnb disrupting how we book the accommodation. Amazon disrupted how we buy and started off with books, and then later it's all pretty much everything. So it's all about how we can manage and have a better control on this explosion of options, and that's where the legislation, some of the legislations, the rules and the regulatory stuff would actually help. So in terms of these, they've got the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, and some of the other authorities which actually say this is how you should try and regulate the financial markets. The healthcare, HL7, HIPAA, to actually kind of regulate the healthcare, the hospitals and stuff like that. So it's all about, all of these different legislations, everything keeps changing. It's not a static world. Changes in environmental aspects. I can't stress enough of these. Again, massive changes in the way that we are approaching things. No plastic. We've been watching all of these fantastic episodes of Mr. Attenborough, and then looking at some of the fantastic ways that he's trying to transform the way we think. And same with some of these young students and young people. They're trying to actually think the way we are approaching things. They're asking us to think global, make sure that we are having little impact on the environmental aspect that we're using things. So banning of the straws and the plastic straws and stuff like that. Again, major, massive changes in the environmental aspects. All of these, you know what, why am I discussing these? This is not something like a social class, right? This is not a, I'm not talking about sociology here. Sorry. Why are we discussing this? Every aspect of this is actually driving the way we are thinking, we are working, we are living, and we are actually, whatever we work, whatever we are thinking, everything is being driven by each one of these. Each of these is important. And every change, whether it is a small website that you're working on, small mobile app that you're working on, you need to think about this. If you're developing mobile app, you think about the GDPR, the privacy rules. You're thinking about the mobile first. You're thinking about the potential entry into, let's say, some of the closed economies, closed markets, some of the heavily regulated markets. If you want to launch your web app or mobile app in there, how can you approach that? You're trying to think in terms of the global appeal. You're trying to think in terms of the exchange rate, how much you can get if you want to actually put your app on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store in some of the other countries. What is it? How much of do you want to go really one code base, or do you have to have your app installed in multiple Play Stores in these different countries? You need to think about these things, right? So everything is important for you. Everything is important, and everything leads to agile, being agile. And the competitive performance, how your competitive landscape is changing massively, right? You got Google, which was actually into, which is a technology company, and talks are out saying that Google is coming up with a driverless car. You already know that, with a driverless car, and then with this autopilot kind of a car. So is it a competitor to Facebook and Apple, or do you think Google is a competitor to Ford or Tesla? You never know. And same with some of these disruptor companies. They call themselves as even, for example, Google. They say Google is coming up with its own bank. You never know. They can come up with their own currency later, and we're talking about cryptocurrency from Google, Facebook, or Apple. And Apple has got its own Pay, Apple Pay. It has got its own TV, Apple TV. It has got its own channel. What are we talking about? We're not talking anything about the traditional mainstream competitors, traditional landscape. No way. We are actually, everything is changing so rapidly. We need to be constantly aware of these changes from the macro point of view, and also the way it affects us. And the customers or the users tend to understand their needs better. So this is really, really important. Nowadays, everybody is so intelligent compared to, I'm not saying that intelligence has grown, but then they are smart enough to be able to appreciate their needs, what they need or what they want quicker, because of the fact that the information is quicker and it's in their hands now, compared to 20 years ago, where they had to actually ask somebody or to do a lot of different work to get to that. So they can express themselves better, and they can reach out. An example for this is previously, if you want to actually have a look or talk to or listen to or understand what the famous actor, some of the Hollywood actors, or what the presidents or the prime ministers would actually think about something, you've got to wait, and you can't ask them. You can't actually approach them as just a fan. But nowadays, you can actually get into the Instagram channels, or you can get to the Facebook pages. You can ask them questions in a Facebook live event, YouTube live event. You can ask them one-on-one conversations. Hey, what do you think about this? Or what color do you like the most? You can ask the famous Hollywood actor, or to the prime minister of the country, or to the president of another country. You can actually try and approach this. How can you do this? Because of the technology advances, right? So again, I mean, I don't want to spend much time on this. You understand that change does have a huge impact in how we operate, how we work on. So you need to understand that the changes can come from any side. It can come in any form, any shape, any size, and in any format. So it's up to us as professionals to be able to understand this from any dimension, to be able to analyze it and understand it, and then see its impact, and then take the call accordingly. So, and the last, of course, is the changes of views and ideas with customers. We talked about it already. We are talking about lifestyle changes, approach to work, approach to life, how the work-life balance has come in. We never took work. About 20 years ago, it was office, and then it was home. So office was separated. You go to office at 9 o'clock, come back by 5:30, 6 o'clock. That's it. And then perhaps you can have a call sometime in the lunchtime to your family or somebody. But it's not the way. We are actually working. We are working from home. We are living in the home. We're working, and to be honest, we're working harder than what we were working before. But if you ask them, what are you doing? Your home is there to live, not work. So there's those set of changes that have been happening.